Everyone, this is Nikki from the design team, and today I'm going to be looking at a shaker card with the new Pawsome Dogs release. This card is a little different than your traditional shaker, so I want to show you how it's made and we'll get right into it. If you haven't done it yet, make sure you hit the subscribe and like button on the Cat Scrappiness channel. I'm going to be using a lot of things from the new release, including some plain white paper. I put the dog bone sprinkles here, but I ended up deciding to use the paw print sprinkles. And one thing that I think makes this card a whole lot easier is this acetate. It's mini Slimline acetate sheets. I'm going to start with plain white cardstock. This is a thick cardstock, 110 or 120 pound. Make sure that your fingers are clean when you're doing this because you want this to be a really bright white. But I just kind of tore it however I felt like. I thought those were about even. And then I'm going to have this as its background, and I'm going to need to put acetate in the middle. So I'm going to show you how to set up this card to make sure you've got it the correct dimensions. So what made this the easiest for me is to cut my background piece to the size I want this card to be. So I'm using mini Slimline acetate, but I'm making a card that is an A2 size. And it's going to be horizontal. So I went on and cut my background to the appropriate size. Now I'm going to get some double-sided adhesive that I need to put towards the top here of each of my white pieces, and this is going to be to hold the acetate. So you don't need but one of these because the acetate doesn't go all the way to the bottom. If you were using an A2 piece of acetate, then you could, tape the whole thing, but we don't need that much here. So I'm going to hold this up to my card base and apply it. So I'm applying this to the top piece as well and getting that ready. And I have a mat that has dimensions on it, so I ended up deciding to take that mat and just use the square that's there instead of the background. I was afraid I was going to accidentally stick this to the background, so I know it's very hard to see that piece of acetate, but I'm putting it right in the middle, and then I'm going to line this up and stick it down. So just make sure you're holding everything correctly and square, all of that. I know it's really hard to see the acetate, but let's put this on the top. So you see how I can line it up with the corner here because my mat has an A2 size card. It's the darker white line, so I'm just lining all that up, making sure that my acetate stays straight, and then going right along this line to keep it level. I know that seems complicated, but it really works pretty easily. Okay, so you got that. Now I can line this top right up at the top here, and I can undo this one and easily place it. So I'm just going to take the adhesive off, place it on the bottom. Once that's done, you will probably have a little piece of acetate sticking out on your edges, and that's because the mini Slimline is just a little bit longer than an A2. So I'm going to cut that edge off where it is. There's a little bit of an edge here. I'm going to make it even, and then I'm going to cut the other side. Right, and there it is. So that's our front window. We still need to close this window in somehow so we can hide the foam tape. So I decided to use this A2 frame, and I'm just going to put it around the edges, and that way I can put foam tape behind it to build my little container for all of my pieces so that they don't fall out the sides. And I thought, I'm going to grab my Copics to color this collar red, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to color the frame as well. You could cut this frame out of red cardstock and try to match, but it's just as easy to take a Copic marker and then all of your parts match perfectly. So I'm going to use a Copic marker on the collar, and then I'm going to use the Copic marker on the actual frame that's going to hold in our pieces. This is R29. It's just a really great red. I use this a lot when I'm using red. It just looks really good. I don't know why I like it so much with these dogs, but with all this like kind of brown paper and little pops of red, look really nice. To color the dog, I started with E25 as my darkest color and just put where I thought shadows were. I did a lot of, I don't know what you would call them, but just some dots too. I feel like to get the fur look, it's nice to create some variation. So after that color, I did E23, and I'll pop that up on the screen. And then my lightest color is E33. And I know I was talking to you about the dots, so let me show you real quick, adding some dots in E23. I like to do the lightest color of the dots first, and then I'm going to go back and do the E25. But you see, you could try to do something to create hair. You can almost do brush strokes to look like hair, but I also think these little dots just show that there's a variation in the coat. And I even thought I'd put some little whisker marks right here. So you can do all kinds of things with these dogs just to make them your own. Here's a quick look at what it looks like with the darker little dots on it too. I know it's subtle, but I really feel like it makes them look so cute. Next, I went on and added the frame around this, and just, you may have a little spot you need to trim off, but just try to get it as even as you can. I used double-sided adhesive for this. Okay, now let's build our little shaker container, I guess you could say. So you need to put some type of foam tape. With as skinny as these little areas are, foam strips are probably your best option. There's a lot of different ones like that, or you can just trim something down. But on the edges where that frame goes, you do not have much space, so you're gonna need a very thin strip. And then I'm gonna build my box. I don't want my shaker pieces to go all the way up to the top because that's covered up by that white paper. So I want them to stay closer to the area where they can be seen on the other side. So I'm gonna add all of these, lots and lots of strips of foam, getting my area set, and then we are gonna use a powder tool to make sure there's no sticky edges that the pieces or the little paw prints can stick to. This is super important for any type of card, and you see I run my finger along, make sure I don't feel any stickiness. The Cat Scrappiness tool, this telescoping powder tool, great tool for it. The next thing you want to do is check your pieces. Okay, so these are pretty flat, but I need to make sure that they're below the level of my tape, okay? So that foam tape needs to stick up so that these can fit and still shake around. If your foam tape is not taller than your pieces, then you need to go back out and add another layer of foam tape. For these, it was perfectly fine. Once I get the adhesive backing off this, I'm going in and attaching the back of my card. So look at how cute the back of that paper is. It's so cute. Okay, so here's the front, and now you can see those things are just moving around just like they should. We may need to trim some edges over here, and then we're gonna move on to putting this card together. I grabbed some chocolate brown that matches using my tool again. That powder tool is a great one. And I'm doing this because I'm going to heat emboss. I'm using VersaMark, and then I'm doing Dogs Are My Favorite People. I stamp it a couple times, add some white embossing powder, and now we just got to put the card together. I'm just loving how it turned out. So some people like to heat emboss directly on acetate, and I think that's perfectly fine. I just wanted to throw in a different color, and I liked doing this on the brown piece of paper. So I'm going to add my little dog. I ended up coloring a little bowl for it too. I just thought that added to the front a little bit. And then that's really it for this card. If you haven't done it yet, make sure you hit the subscribe and like button for this channel. That really helps Cat Scrappiness out. And if you have any questions, any current concerns, make sure you put them in the comments and I will answer them. Thanks so much for sticking with me through this video. And once again, I'm Nikki from the design team. Have a great day, guys. Bye.